listeners, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. This is the first episode on a special series that I am completing in November to raise a bit of awareness for men's mental health alongside the Movember initiative that happens every November, alongside the More Than a Run campaign that works with Lululemon during November, and alongside Lululemon partnering with the Inside Running podcast during the month of November. In these episodes, I'm talking to 10 different high-performing individuals in the Australian running space, and we're chatting through what their mental health's like when they've had some ups and downs, what strategies they use to get through their days, to get through their high-performing races. And yeah, it's just a bit of a conversation that just goes in any direction to do with mental health and you know, the sport we love in distance running. The first episode today, whenever you're listening to this show, is with someone I know very well. Not all the episodes are with people I know very well, but this person I do know very well, but we have never spoken about this kind of stuff before. It's with the Bendigo Bats Premiership two-time captain, Andy Buchanan. He also represented Australia at the Commonwealth Games. Was that last year? Yeah, I think it was last year. And he's a 2:10 marathoner. He's on his potential road to Paris. We do talk about that a bit towards the end of the show. Olympics next year, and has Fukuoka Marathon coming up in a couple of weeks. Massive thank you to Andy for his honesty, authenticity. And yeah, it was a chat that I thoroughly enjoyed having, and I hope you enjoy listening to. Stay tuned for the rest of the month. We've got a good lineup of people coming. We've got 10 episodes, only 8 of them are booked so far, so if you do have a suggestion of someone you want me to talk to, be sure to let me know. No guarantees that I can make that work, but would be good to know who you think might fit the bill and you want to hear from. Thanks guys, enjoy this chat with Andy.
Make sure you hit record.
Oh yeah, I've never fucked that up.
It's good.
I've been doing this for a long time, mate. I never don't hit record. I think it moves to stuff that once or twice before, but nah, for me, I panic too much that we'll lose it all. So we are recording. And Andy Buchanan, thank you for being involved in this little project. How are you this evening? It's Wednesday. You just come off a public holiday.
Yeah, good, Brady. I'm going well. Thanks for having me on again. I feel a little bit robbed today because it's a public holiday and I don't work Wednesdays. So a little bit different, but it's always good to have a day off, and the weather's getting good, and yeah, getting pretty close to a marathon actually. So life's pretty good at the moment.
That is good, and that could impact the score you're about to give in this first question. But I do want to say thank you, man. You have a lot of conversations about other stuff, but very rarely, probably never, have we had a chat about your mental health. So obviously there's a bit of vulnerability, a bit of honesty that's involved doing an episode like this, and I really appreciate that. But the first hard-hitting question, Andy, is give yourself a score with your mental health out of 10 at the moment. What are you rolling with?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I had a little bit of a think about it, and I would have to rank myself probably an 8 or a 9. So life's pretty good at the moment. I've got one more day of work and then heading up to Falls Creek for a bit. So life's good. I'm pretty comfortable where I am, and yeah, I don't know if there's maybe those rare days where you're a 10, like those really special days. But it's not a question that comes to mind very often. I think I've been quite lucky and fortunate that I've never really rated myself low or been in that situation. So life's normally pretty good for me, and I think running has a massive part to do with that. So yeah, at the moment I'm probably about a 9. Everything's going along pretty smoothly, but I think it's like going back to that little intro. I think it's great that we now have these conversations, because back when you and I went to school, which wasn't that long ago, it was a little bit ago, but mental health was never spoken about. So I think it's a really good step forward, and I think it's going to be a big issue going forward. Where I'm seeing a lot with kids in school. I'm not sure if you're seeing it post-COVID, but I think it's great that people can speak more openly about mental health, because I think it's going to be an ongoing issue for a lot of people.
If you had to ask me what score would I give you, I would say like 8 or 9, occasional 10 as well, because you seem like you've got everything in life and seeming to have it, and actually having it behind closed
Yeah.
doors and stuff can be different as well. But from the outside looking in, you seem very relaxed, very got your finger on the pulse across a number of things, and you seem to cope and perform at a very high level in a number of different aspects very well. But flick back like 2.5, 3 weeks ago when you had an injury, in which there would have been a bit of a question mark over the potential next marathon you're doing in Fukuoka in December, which is a massive opportunity for you to qualify for the Paris Olympics next year. How did the injury affect that score and like the day-to-day way you were operating and thinking about things?
Yeah, massively. I can quite happily admit that I'm very grumpy and not great to be around when I'm not running. Running provides me with that purpose. I get out of bed and I have something to do, and I come home from work, I have something to do, and without that purpose, I feel really lost. I feel that after marathons a little bit when you know you're having a big break, like 2 or 3 weeks, and it's just like, oh, what am I like? Because every night I go to bed and I'm excited for the next day because I'm going for a run, because I'm doing a session, because I'm whatever it is. And that sounds like a little bit lame, but it's just how much I love running, and it really gives me that purpose. So a few weeks ago, I had a bit of a niggle at the back of my knee, just a little strain in a muscle there, and it wasn't doom and gloom. I think both for 2 weeks I ran 80, 90K a week, which is still a fair bit of running, but I'm used to running twice a day, pretty much every single day. And there was definitely some days in there where I felt low for myself, and I know that me comparing my problems to other people's problems, it's all relative. But for me, I felt quite low. It's hard to give you an answer out of 10 because it's something that I wasn't thinking about in the moment, but I'd probably give myself a 3 or a 4. I was pretty down, especially knowing I had this race coming up. Whereas if I didn't have that race, you'd enjoy a few days off and you'd reset. Whereas as I was going along, I didn't really have a plan for the first week. And whenever you have an injury and you don't have a plan, it's really hard because you're like, do I do this? Do I not do this? You're overthinking things. You're questioning everything. So that really impacted my mental health. And yeah, I definitely said to my coworkers and my partner, like, look, I'm sorry. This is me at a low point. But thankfully I've got a lot of people around that help me and support me. And those rough times for me have always ended. So it's like, yeah, once you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, it's all good. And like a week's a long time, because if we record this a week ago, I definitely would have answered a 9 or anything like that.
Yeah, and I was just thinking there was some good news for you today as well, that the Australian cross country team for the World Cross Country Championships is now going to have a trial. So you're the man. Must have been like, that's more good news that's kind of hit your headspace over the last 24 hours.
I heard a rumor about this a few days ago, so I knew it was coming. But I was just, when I found out that they weren't going to have a trial, I was like, what is going on? Like, how can you do this? And a few of the Bendigo Bats boys are pretty stoked because they're eyeing off that under 20 team, and they're really happy, because trying to pick an 8K cross country team for the juniors off a 3K track race just doesn't make sense. So the mental health is just getting better and better as the week goes.
So you were saying a couple of weeks ago when the score kind of dropped from that 8 to a 3 or 4, you name it with the people close to you early on and just say, hey, I'm not going to be myself the next week or two. This is going to hit me if, like, I'm just, forewarning you that this is what you might see from me in the next week or two. Yeah,
it probably doesn't come out straight off the gun, if that makes sense. It's more so I might have not an argument, but like I might disagree and get a little bit snappy, and then it's like, oh, I like have a little bit of time to reflect and go, oh no, yeah, and then I come apologize and say, look, sorry, this is why I'm not my normal self because of this. And it's stuff I say to the kids if I get a little bit cranky at school because they're not wearing their uniform, and normally I kind of let it fly. I might not let it fly, and I'll say to the kids, oh, sorry, I'm a bit grumpy at the moment, I'm not running. And they're like, oh, that must be so nice. And I hate, and because they're involved in my journey as well. So I'm not comfortable enough just starting the conversation about it, but it's if I act out of how I normally would, then I follow it up with an apology and explain why I'm feeling off, kind of thing, it's definitely something I wouldn't have been able to do probably 3 or 4 years ago. It's just something that I've learned, and as I've matured, I've become a lot more comfortable talking about.
And other than talking about it, do you have like any other strategies that you're like, all right, this is my go-to when I'm feeling like that to not continue down that like a rabbit hole of like being grumpy and having that poor attitude? And, sometimes
Yeah,
I know for me, I'm a prick to be around when it's that kind of when I'm thinking in that
yeah,
kind of mentality.
yeah. For like the easy answer, but unfortunately I can't always do this answer, is go for a run. That
Yeah,
always makes me feel better. But for me, a massive part is just being in nature. And I'm really lucky that in Bendigo we're surrounded by bushland, and it's like if I can't run, I'll take my dog out for a walk and just leave my phone in the car and just be out there, just me and my dog. And it's like then I come back and I feel much better. So that's probably what I do is I look to escape probably all the things that are tying me down in a sense, and try to just be on my own in a very comfortable space. And for me, that's kind of like the bush around Bendigo.
no
So it's
headphones, just let the mind wander.
no headphones at all. Just yeah, just me and the dog, and thankfully I never really see anyone out there. So it's very peaceful and very nice.
When you are running, and like I'm sure you kind of use running to kind of clear the head and a bit of that kind of, morning meditation or whatever, however you want to refer to it, when you're just doing the easy jogs before work and stuff, do you listen to music and stuff when you're just solo?
Yeah, I do mostly. Not all the time. There's some runs where I just really don't feel like it, or sometimes I'll be listening to music or a podcast, but I'm not actually listening to it just because my brain's just in a different headspace, just thinking about stuff or like imagining what I'm going to do in a race coming up or something like that. And there's actually been runs where I've just put my headphones in my little pocket in the back of the splitties because I've just felt the music has been too much of a distraction. But most runs I'll take the headphones with me. I think just because I do so much running, it's a bit of I don't know. It's a bit of motivation for that first K, but once that first K kind of you get through that first K, normally it's yeah, the motivation's fine. But
Yeah, I'm like that as well. Like, yeah, I'll like got this little like iPoddy thing, so like you drop stuff onto it that you think you're gonna listen to as you're running. Like put a couple podcasts on, and then like get 3 minutes in, and it's just like my head can't go onto this podcast now. I'm actually
yeah,
running. Like I need this, or I need to just pause it as you said, and just like let the mind go and put the headphones in the little lemon short pocket as you're going.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's been so many times that I've had to re-listen to a podcast at back like once I'm back home, like if it's a real deep like resilience project or something like that podcast, and I've really wanted to listen to it, but when I've been out running, I can't listen to it and run at the same time because I'm just my mind's somewhere else. So there's been plenty of times where I've had to come home. Like typically one of my favorite ones is that Ben Crow. I don't know if you've
Oh yeah,
listened to him
yeah,
much.
Ash
But
Barty,
I've often,
old Nike
yeah,
guy.
yep, often I've had to come home and actually re-listen to it where I can actually focus on that and just that. So
Yeah, I often wonder how many podcasts I've listened to over the years where I've just only heard 80% of it. And
yeah,
like times like 500 podcast episodes, and you're just like, ooh,
yeah,
what have I actually missed
yeah.
in the stuff there? Do you find driving pretty similar as well? You don't have to drive far in Bendy, I suppose, but like when you go to do trips, you sometimes think your mind wants you to listen to some kind of things, and then other trips it's just like, nah, I need this.
Yeah, it's funny. My work is literally a K away, and I really should walk or ride my bike, but I drive a lot, and so I normally get one song in. So it depends on what my favorite song is at the moment. At the moment, I've been listening. This is off topic, but I've been listening to that Flume remix of Shooting Stars. It's like a version.
Bag Raiders?
Bag Raiders,
Yeah.
yeah. Been
Yep.
listening to that heaps, and that gets me from home to work, and that's really all I listen to. But then
Really
there's
weird
other.
video clip, like when they done that live, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah, a guy playing the
That's
saxophone, I
right,
think,
yeah.
and yeah, a few weird things. But there's other times where you'll know this struggle a little bit. I've still got so Brady and I used to have very similar cars as first cars, and he's upgraded his car, obviously a Chuka Kia.
Thanks to
Um,
Kia, yes.
yep, thank you. So I've still got my OG Commodore, and the radio actually stopped working. So there's been plenty of times where I've just driven to Melbourne in pure silence, but I've upgraded it with surround sound, aka a Bluetooth speaker in the back. But
No, you haven't.
yeah, I
You,
have.
you just have a portable Bluetooth speaker in your
Yeah,
car
yeah. And then I've got
and
it
just
in
put
the
it in the back seat.
yeah, and then in the cigarette lighter in the center console, I've just put USB charger, and then it's just constantly charging. So it's like it's
Do you
perfect.
have to reach over and turn
Um,
it on?
yeah, yeah. So there's
And then it like
sometimes when
makes
I
that
don't,
noise when it connects to Bluetooth in
yeah,
your car.
yeah, tells me like how much battery it is every single time, and tells me connecting to iPhone, like my iPhone. But there's been some times where I just haven't been bothered to turn it on, and I've driven the whole way down to Melbourne, or sometimes to different places just with nothing, and I'm just kind of thinking. But it's funny, if you stop me at the end of that car trip and ask what I thought about, I wouldn't be able to tell you, because it's just like your mind just goes to different places. And I think I some people personally, I really like to be by myself, and a lot of people don't. But I think I really like my own space, and I'm very comfortable in my own space. Like I watch I don't know if you've seen it, that Alone series.
No,
There's an
I haven't.
Australian so
What's it on? Oh, do they? Is that where they drop them? The reality TV show drop them in like Alaska and stuff.
yep,
I
yep,
guess
and
they
it's as long
survive.
as yeah, it's as long as you can last. And they did it in Australia, but they've done it in Alaska and all over the place.
Yeah,
And it's like they've got to find their own food, make their own shelter, and all that kind of stuff. And like I look at that and go, that'd be awesome to do. Like when I'm done running, just to see how I'd go. I'd hate finding food and that kind of stuff, but I'd love to see how long I could last without any social interaction. I think it would be a lot harder than what you actually think. But yeah, it's funny. I really like my alone time, but then at the same time, get me in a big group for a group session or a Sunday long run, and I'm super happy. It's my real happy place, like a long run here in Bendigo with the group. Like, you know what it's like.
okay,
It's heaps
you
of
get
fun.
it for free, don't you? It's just like
You do,
all you gotta do
yeah.
is get out of the car at 7 a.m. and you're like, okay, there's my long run complete for the morning.
Yep, if it's 7:05, you've got a bit of a
Yeah,
workout. As Glenn joined us on Sunday, and yeah, he got there a bit late, and we didn't see him till One Tree Hill, so he a bit of a threshold to start with.
a bit of VO2 work up the first couple of hills for Glenn. Hey, on this isn't. Oh, it might be one of the questions I sent you this morning, a bit further down. But talking about that car trip home from Bendigo, listeners, we're talking about, I don't know, 90 minutes down the highway, 110k most of the way, 2 lanes, pretty easy drive, not many turns. But I'm sure there's many trips you've made coming home from races when you've been on that runner's high. I'm thinking about a couple of Zatapex where you've had good runs, things like that. And maybe the answer is a couple of Zatapex when you've had poor runs. But can you remember ever driving home being in a bad mental space, going like, because of that performance?
Yeah, I can't specifically remember. I remember one time I ran Steigen 10k down at Geelong,
Jeez, what
and
were you
I
doing
thought,
running Steigen 10k?
oh, this was
Back before
ages
you were
ago.
good.
This was when Guzman actually won.
Oh, yeah, I do remember that.
Like, this was, yeah, ages ago. And I remember running. I can't remember. I can't remember what it was, but I thought I ran all right. And I was often on these drives. I talked to my coach Scott, and he's really honest, and that's good. We have that relationship, and this one sticks out. I don't know why, because he said to me, no matter the race, you should always be able to close in a 60 or sub 60. You should just be able to find those wheels. And I think I was bragging about how I closed in a 66, and he very quickly like shut me down and kind of put me back in my place a little bit,
Did you did
which is
you did you come second to Guzman?
I think I came. Mitch Brown was there. I can't
Oh
remember
yeah,
if I rolled Mitch or not, but I think I was around that second or third.
yeah.
But I didn't have a good race, and that feedback that Scott gave me it's something I've just always remembered. And I was actually driving from Geelong to Camperdown where my grandparents live, and I was I wasn't really that happy with my race. And as I got out of the car, I wasn't feeling that super stoked about myself. But nearly every single Zatopek at Lakeside I've been disappointed with, and it's been a pretty shit drive home, because for me, they used to always happen a week after our school camp, and it was like it was like the second or last week of term. Like, you know what it's like as a
Yeah.
teacher. It was on a Thursday night, and I used to always go down, think I could run great, and then you get in a 10k, you're feeling shit after 15 laps, and you're like, what am I doing out here? You're in front of everyone, like you feel a little bit embarrassed. You feel like you've let a lot of people down. But I've had I always talk with Scott on the way home, and it's always been good to talk over it. And it's like I've got a bit of a rule where you can feel sorry for yourself for the drive home, but once you get out of that car, it's all right. Yep, move on. There's no point feeling sorry for yourself for the next 2, 3 weeks. Like that doesn't achieve anything. So kind of like process it, learn from it, have a chat to Scotty, like debrief, but then use that car trip as that time. And then once you get home, I'm not allowed to be grumpy or complaining and that kind of stuff. Because at the end of the day, it's like we're very privileged to be able to do what we do. Like you look at what's going on in the world at the moment, and it's like, yeah, like you're disappointed about a race, whoop-de-doo. Like so that's a bit of the ruling I've got. But then the flip side, I've had so many fun times where I've been with friends, often the Buckle twins, driving home from Box Hill after some 3K, 5K or Zatopek's there. And it's like, they're some of my happiest memories, like driving home, stopping at Cola Macca's, just getting whatever you want,
Yeah.
coming home, like having a shower, and then you go to bed and you're just staring at the ceiling and you're like, what the fuck just happened? Like that was amazing kind of thing. So it's very, I've experienced both sides of the coin very much
Have you
so.
ever had, like, I remember one Zatopek I ran, maybe my first one. I could not get to sleep. Stayed awake the whole night when I got back to my parents in Bendigo, and then drove from Bendigo to Chuka the next morning, went to school for the day, and I was still like up and about. Just could not
Oh,
believe.
really?
Like I ran like 30, I think it was like 30:05 or 30:10 or something like that in my first one, and didn't
Yeah.
get like lapped too many times. And I was just absolutely like buzzing that I think it was like a 25-second or 30-second PB kind of thing, and just stoked. But I was so high that I just could not come down until the next day.
I remember after I did a Box Hill, I think it was the 3K. I think I ran 7:55, which like I never thought I'd be able to run sub 8. And I remember we went to a dumpling place. Rose was with me and I was with Nath, Roman Nath. And we went to this dumpling place and like normally it's like, all right, let's try and do this cool down and get on the road. And we ended up going into Box Hill, which is the opposite way to Bendigo. And I didn't care because I was just on this high. I didn't care what time I got home. I didn't care I had work the next day. Like you were just like, like I felt so light because I didn't have a problem in the world because I was like, I just ran 750. Like I'm never going to run like this ever again. And it's like, I think it's good to be able to enjoy that moment because often a lot of runners, they get caught wanting more and they don't enjoy that specific moment. They're like, oh, next time I could run 750.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like, nah, like enjoy that moment for what it is. And I'll never forget, like, I can't really remember the race that much, but I remember afterwards, which I think's it's one of the most important parts. Enjoying that moment afterwards.
You can tell you've worked on yourself a lot, just with like the different strategies and stuff. You're like, just I reckon you mentioned 4 or 5 things that you're just like, this is our process, this is a strategy, this is a kind of like routine I use. But I can't imagine you being super shitty if you ran 8:20. Like, I think you would be deep down, like, disappointed and upset, but I don't think you'd be a prick to be around or, like, not then go out for dinner or, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think in that moment, I wouldn't
Perspective
be.
you've got.
Yeah, but then the next week or two, maybe, if it kept happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, if I kept having poor results and it was like,
In a slump.
most of the time, I feel like I can pinpoint why I've had a bad result. So if I know why, I'm okay with it. So like a good example is after Com Games last year, I decided to do National Cross. Honestly, I thought it was a good chance to win 2.5 grand. I was like, yep, it's in Adelaide. I don't think many people are going to go. And Scotty, my coach, was like, don't do it. You've just ran a marathon. You're cooked. Rah, rah, rah. And I was like, no, I'll go. I'll be all good. Like, I'm pretty good at cross country.
2-time cross-country champ of Australia.
Yeah, exactly. Just a stroll in the
can
park.
be.
And I came 7th. It was the hardest race I've ever done. And I remember going out that night and like some people were coming up to me being like, oh, 7th, that's not. I was like, oh, it's all right. I know why, so it's not the end of the world. This wasn't my race I was targeting. So I feel like I can very much process it, understand why, and then move on very quickly. Whereas I've never been in the position where those bad races have kept happening, and I feel like that's when I could get into that slump and I'm like, I don't know why I'm running poorly. Like, what's going on? My last 5 races have been shit house. Like, I'm not getting better. Whereas I've been very much just on that steady improve.
Yeah, you can't identify what's causing you to have those issues. Back on the Calder Macca's as well. This is the petrol station on the way home between Melbourne and Bendigo. Are you the kind of guy, like, if you have a good race, it's like, I can eat whatever I want here? There's a Servo, there's KFC, there's Subway, there's McDonald's. And then are you like, because I've done this in the past, where it's like, I've had a shit race, it's like, we're having a bottle of water, a Gatorade, and a protein, like Big M. I can't treat myself, even though you know it's not going to impact anything.
Yeah.
But it's that mindset, you're like, process, result Y or X equals outcome Y kind of thing, and I can't then relax. Whereas relaxing and eating that stuff's probably better for you anyway, coming home and recovering.
Yeah, I'm really lucky in that I've always been very relaxed about food, and it's something I've never really got caught up on. And my theory is, like, you've used this energy in the race, and it's about fueling up again. And at this Calder Macca's, there's normally, by the time we're there, Subway's not even open, and there's very limited good options. And I don't feel, after a good race or a bad race, I'll normally order the same thing. So it's and I think that's a good thing, because I think that's a little bit better mindset to have, rather than kind of beating yourself up more, because that's just not really going to help. So I'm really lucky that I've never had a bad relationship with food. I've never thought, oh, maybe I shouldn't have this Kit Kat, or maybe I shouldn't have this donut. Like, I bloody love donuts. Like, I had 2 jam donuts after my midweek long run this morning, and I was just chatting with Dave Lonsdale, who took me on the loop, and it was just like, I know, I love food, and it's
hot jam donuts, the ones in the van.
Kangaroo Flat, not the ones at the lake, the ones at Kangaroo Flat.
Are they both
much
the same?
better. No, different vans, different donuts. Can't even compare.
Same product though, like hot jam donuts.
We'll agree to disagree.
You're not talking about just like Servo donuts, or
no, not Servo. No, these are
donuts.
These are made. So these guys wake up at like 5 a.m. in the morning, make the dough themselves, and then they've got this van that they drive out, cook the donuts, awesome jam, and it's amazing. Like, people need to come to Bendigo to experience these jam donuts.
I feel like Vic Market and stuff have it in Melbourne. There's a lot of people that sell hot jam donuts. It's not a Bendigo thing.
It's not just a Bendigo thing, but I follow them on Facebook, and there's a lot of people that comment on there saying, yes, we're coming up from Gisborne, or we're coming, like, they travel for these donuts.
Just to get the donuts.
Yeah. So they're really good for my mental health, I think.
Well, you talked about, like, how you're not high strung with your diet and stuff, which is probably, an area you are pretty relaxed. What about, like, high stressful situations? Maybe we'll go with this in 2 parts. Like, one, we'll talk about pre-race, like you're on the start line at the Commonwealth Games or the night before, or whatever it is. We might do that bit first, but also start thinking about, like, you're rushing from school, you've got coaching to do, you've got emails to answer, you've got flights to book, you've got podcasts to be on. Like, that whole, like, day-to-day of Andy Buchanan must cause you some stress as well. But tell me about race stuff, anxiety first. Stress, pressure.
Before Com Games, it was a really weird space, because at the time I'd only done 1 marathon, and I really didn't have that much confidence in myself, because I was like, did I just fluke this 1 marathon? And standing on the start line, like, representing your country, which is something like I never thought I'd get that opportunity to do, and I was like super grateful, like, loving life. I just spent the last 3 weeks in St. Moritz with, like, Jess, Sinead, Eloise, like, absolutely loving life. And then it's like, it kind of hit me a few days before, when I'm like, shit, I'm doing a marathon. This is only my 2nd marathon. Like, what happens if this happens or that happens? Whereas I think in normal situations, I use previous experiences to build a form of confidence, which therefore means I don't get that much anxiety. You definitely get a little bit, but I feel like I don't really normally suffer from that. Like, say an XCR cross country race, I'm that confident, but just like, I think back to previous races and I'm like, I've got this. I very much know that area. Whereas the Com Games was out of that comfort zone, but I think that's where you learn the most. So I was just like, I really tried to take some time to enjoy the moment, enjoy the village, enjoy that, because I was like, hey, 10 years ago, I wouldn't have thought I was doing this. And you would have thought the same thing when you were towing me up in K-Reps at the lake. You would have never thought that I'd...
Taking me back.
Yeah. You never thought I'd be doing that. So I was just really trying to be in the moment. So that was different, but I feel like I learned a lot through that. And I think that's where, if we can, like Athletics Australia, expose some younger kids to these teams, it can really help them going forward.
Did you have a team psych on the team? And did you use a psychologist? No.
I don't think we did. I feel like on some emails there was one, but I think because we had world champs and then com games,
Yeah,
so
that's
like
right.
there was a lot of crossover there, and I never got access to them. I feel like there was one, but I've been seeing a sports psych for probably a year now. A guy from Melbourne, Ed Barlow, and he's like I don't tell many people because I feel like it's like a secret weapon. Like it's a little thing that's like a bit of a hack code. Because he makes such a big difference and he changes the way I think, and he's made a massive difference because as athletes we spend so long training our body, but we don't train our mind, and I think the mind is the most powerful thing. So yeah, I do see a sports psych and I see him. It really changes, depends on, like, I'll send him a message, say, hey Ed, I'm keen to catch up, and he'll meet with me within the week. Leading up to big races, we'll catch up once a month. He actually did, after the 10 relays, I did some marathon reps along the Yarra. I did 2x4K, and he was actually on the bike and trying some different things, trying to like pump me up and then also like psych me out just to see how that changed my mental state. So that's one thing that I think he's improved me by so much. Like if I had to put a number on it, I'd kind of say like 3 or 4%. Wished in at the pointy end, that's pretty big. So it's
Yeah. Do you? I know you said you don't tell people because you think it's like an advantage, like a cheat code kind of thing. But do you
yeah,
think as well, especially men, we get embarrassed about saying like we see a psych because often you associate a psychologist with there must be something wrong, not this is how I
yeah,
get better. Off,
definitely.
I'm going okay, and this is how I become even better at being okay.
Yeah, when I first started seeing him, I remember it was up at Falls Creek last year, and I was staying with the guys I normally stay with, and I had my first Zoom call with him. And I remember not telling the guys exactly who it was with because I did feel a bit funny about it, but now I'm just so used to it. And so yeah, there was definitely a bit of that, like I was worried that if I said, oh, I'm seeing a sports psych, they'd say, oh, what's wrong with you?
Yeah,
Like, whereas it's really, and I admit I would probably think the same thing, whereas hopefully that stigma is starting to change, but
surely it
it's,
has now. I think. Yeah,
yeah, but it's, so I definitely held back a little bit, whereas now it's genuinely, I don't tell too many people because I'm like, hey, that's how I'm getting heaps better. So I don't want to tell my opposition, and they can access this bonus.
well,
So
it should be almost mandatory when you make a team. Like, just be like just a
mm,
20-minute, half an hour check in, whatever it is. Hey, I'm the team psych. These are some of the questions I would ask you if we had an appointment. Da da da. Like, just break that ice.
exactly. And I remember this is years ago. I don't know how I remember this, but I was driving to Falls Creek and I was listening to, I don't know if it was on your podcast or someone else, but you interviewed Morgan McDonald,
Yep, we
and
did.
he was talking
Moose
about,
did stuffed up the first
yeah,
record and had to redo the whole thing.
typical Moose.
Yeah,
No, and he spoke about seeing a sports psych. I feel like it was before a team.
he
Might have been
did. I remember
com
exactly the spot
games.
I was when I listened to that. Now you mention it,
Yeah,
I remember
yeah,
exactly the trail I was when it was talking about, and that's probably one of the first people I heard openly talking about it.
yep,
But
yep,
because he did have issues with performance anxiety.
yeah,
So it's like you see this and you go, okay, so Morgan needs to see that. But people
mm,
go, well, I don't need to see that. I've got nothing wrong. I'm fine. Yada
yep,
yada yada. Like,
yep,
yeah,
yeah, yeah. That's so yeah, that was one of the first times I'd heard of it, and then we actually had Ed come up and talk to our kids. So in our sports program, we introduce sports psychology. We don't go into the depths, but we start to talk about it, which I think is really, really cool because they're starting to learn from a younger age how powerful the mind is, in good ways and bad ways. So it's that's how I got to know Ed, and I was just like, man, this guy, I get along with him so well, and we work so well, and I can be really honest. And he asked me some really bloody hard questions where I really have to think really deep about myself and my actions and my weaknesses, and it's yeah, it's they're full on. We talk for about an hour, and I most of the time I'm like, man, I'm done. We need to stop because it's very physically and emotionally draining. But it's so yeah, so good. But the second part of that question,
yeah, the day to day stress. How do you
day to day,
keep your level head about you?
yeah, I'm really lucky. I've got a a lot of supportive people around me. So a lot of people at work that really, I suppose, follow my journey and appreciate that I'm kind of trying to break out of that. Bendigo's a very footy, netball, basketball kind of thing, and they think, oh yeah, I kicked 6 goals for the Dragons on the weekend. Look at me, I'm bloody amazing. Like, hang on, mate, it's Bendigo footy. Calm down. So they're really appreciative that I'm trying to like make the Olympics and dreaming big. So they help me a lot with that kind of stuff. The group we train with, I've got some really good guys that are experienced there, and they help out a lot because it is hectic. And it's like I get to a track session, like say last night, we've got 25, 30 people there. I coach nearly all of them. I've got to give them a session. I've got to think about my own session. So it is very draining, but I think back to when there was 3 or 4 of us doing sessions, and I'm like, I'd rather have 30 people to dish out sessions and have this massive group. But it can get on top of me because these things add up, and on a Tuesday I work all day and then I do the session. I come home and I've got these notifications on Final Surge. I need to get back to athletes, and so I feel like it does build up, and I get quite stressed, I suppose, in that like it feels like it's not possible to catch up. And then I always I'll just make a list. I'm like, all right, this is what I need to do tonight. Other stuff can wait till tomorrow. I don't work on Wednesday, so I can get through that list. So it's tonight. All right, I'm going to do these 3 or 4 things, do them well. All right, yep, that's done. All right, Wednesday, what do I need to do? And it's again that having that plan that just helps my brain. It's nearly like having files everywhere and then sorting them into a like a filing cabinet and making sure everything has its place. And then my mind's just so much clearer, so I can really just focus on the things I need to action sooner. So I think I've learnt that just because I do have some really big days and I need to do that. So
the organisation's a key. And you kind of mentioned the gratitude there as well, which you've kind of mentioned without mentioning the word gratitude a few times. Like, this is what it could be like, or this is what it was like. Now look at how this situation's evolved, and we should just be stopping and smelling the roses and being grateful that we're here now.
Yeah, enjoy the moment. Like, as one of our good friends, Paddy, says, pressure is a privilege.
Yeah.
One of his favourite sayings.
I often think that as well. And just like this, I live in the same street as a nursing home. So like so many times I go for my second run, I'm tired, I've got a shitload of stuff I need to get back to on emails, or I've got to get up and go early before school the next day or whatever. And I have this little like pity party, and then I get like 300 metres down my street, and like, I don't know if it's like people with like sickness and stuff as well in some of the rooms, but they kind of like wheel them out the front of the nursing home so they're in the sun. And I'm just like watching some of these people, and I'm like, oh, they've probably got, very limited time left on this earth. And it's like, here I am whinging that I get to go out and run, 4-minute 30, 4-minute Ks, and just like be in the fresh air. And I'm like, they would swap with me, I'm sure. I don't know, maybe that's just me being thinking about it the wrong way, but I'm like, I swear they would love to be able to go back and be a 35-year-old who gets to run and do some of the cool shit that we get to do with our lives.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think we're constantly wanting to get to the next milestone that we're not actually enjoying what we're doing at the moment. Like, and it's like, I tell this to kids at school all the time. I was like, honestly, like, your time at school is great. You come to school, you don't have a care in the world. Life's good. Enjoy it, because there's a time where you have all these stresses, and it's just, so I agree fully.
Yeah, it's good. Hey, last one for you. What does your mind do after the different types of runs? So, like, I'm talking about, you just got a basic as recovery run, you got some hill reps, you're doing a track workout, maybe you're doing a workout down near the lake, you got a long run. Like, do you feel like the way you come off those runs is a bit different? And which one do you enjoy the most, and which one doesn't give you as many kicks as the other ones might?
Yeah, so like, I suppose with the easy run, it's like a recharge, and I actually feel like I'm more ready to, say, tackle a day. I feel like I've thought about things, and I know what I'm doing for that day after an easy run. A long run, I'd feel I'm in my best mood. I feel like I've just loved the last 2 hours. a little bit fatigued, but I'm really like kind of ready for the rest of the day, like mentally. But then my all-time favorite would have to be like a marathon session. You're fatigued, but you're like, I've just achieved something really cool. I've pushed my limits, and like I've really extended them, and I feel really good about it. I haven't really had that many bad marathon sessions, so it's yeah, I've never had a stinker and felt negative about it. So they're probably my favorite. Hills are funny. I always feel really positive about them because I feel like I've achieved something. The simple act of running from the start of the hill to the bottom of the hill,
Yeah.
sorry, the start to the top, you you don't really care about paces, and you just like, hey, I did that 8 times. That's successful. So you kind of like not really over analyzing it. Whereas with a track session, you're kind of thinking about every split and you're like, oh, this one was a second off. You're like, well, really, that doesn't matter. But I feel like a lot of people will overanalyze that. So a lot of different feelings. I always feel good after a run. But my favorite would be kind of marathon session followed by a long run. But then there's no better way to start the day than an easy run. I feel like that really gets me ready for a good day. And I know you're the same too.
Yeah. I don't know what I'd do if I was injured and had to be in a moon boot for 6 weeks and couldn't run just before work or daily like routine. It would be something that I would have to address and be like, and I probably should already do that now because I feel like I've tied my identity to it. Because I've
Yeah.
gone for a run every day for the last, or pretty much every day for the last, since I was 15, so 20 years. I've lived my life running in the morning before going to do whatever I've gone to do.
Yeah.
So I've done that for more years I've been alive than I haven't. So it's just like
Yeah.
that's just how we roll. That's what life is.
It's
Um,
funny. Like a
yeah,
few years ago, I was really trying to make sure my whole identity wasn't running. Whereas now I'm very comfortable with that being my identity. Like I feel like I was trying to like do a few little things to have a few different like strings in my bow. And yeah, now I'm more than happy that people know me as a runner, and that's completely fine. And I want to make it more that than maybe a teacher or I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I feel very comfortable with that, and I quite like that feeling.
yeah. Hey, resources, Andy. You've just proven for the last like 40 minutes that you know what you're talking about in this area. I'm glad we got you on for a guest. I did tell you off there, we've got no dickhead policy and people who are good at having conversations around this, and you've proven that tonight. But like you mentioned the Imperfects podcast in there, you mentioned the Ben Crow episode. Like where else do you go to kind of get information to help you out in this area of your life?
Oh, that's really hard. Because yeah, it's challenging talking about mental health because it's such a big topic, and we're both school teachers. So yes, we can talk about it, but everyone has different experiences. We've been really privileged to have a really good life, a good upbringing, all that kind of stuff. But in terms of resources, I think nothing beats a good friend that knows you and that you can talk to and feel comfortable talking to them, rather than having to put on I don't know, a different face and make up lies. So I think having that one person that you feel really safe talking to, and just even if they just listen, you feel better about talking. And hopefully together with that person, if you do need help, you can find the right avenue, because I think having a sounding board is massive. And yeah, so I really enjoy the Imperfects. I really like how they normalize mental health. They normalize the struggles that everyone goes through. That's one of my favorites. There's plenty of good apps out there. I used to use Smiling Minds a little bit. I'm sure you've heard of that
Yes.
as a
Yep.
school teacher.
Headspace is
Yeah,
pretty good as well.
yeah, Headspace. The Smiling Minds app have a really good little 5-minute meditation, which is something I used to actually do. So on a Tuesday, I work from like 6 a.m. to about 3:30 p.m. I come home, I've got about half an hour before I go to the session, and I used to actually listen to that Smiling Minds, and I'd put on like a 10-minute meditation, and it would do wonders because it actually provided me that time to kind of like relax, and it really separated work from running, which was good because often I'd rush home, quickly get changed, and then I'd stay at work a bit later, rush home, get changed, head straight to running, and I'd take work with me to running, and it just wasn't good. Whereas using that app to separate those things, and rather than just sitting on your phone scrolling on Instagram for 10 minutes, like putting that little meditation thing on, I found really, really useful.
Because
so that's something
the answer to that is people go, I don't have time for meditation. Then you're like, all right, well, show us your screen time on your settings in your iPhone.
Yeah,
hey, you're down on the phone today for like 2.5 hours and like 90 minutes of that's on Instagram.
Yeah. So I use that Smiley Minds a little bit. I'd love to use it more. I've fallen out of that habit, and it's something I'd really like to pick up again. So that's a resource that I've used a fair bit just to focus a bit more on me rather than all the stuff going on around my head.
Yeah, mate, it's been a pleasure, been a privilege to talk about this stuff with you for the last 40 minutes. Thanks again for giving up some time. And yes, I'm sure the listeners have enjoyed that last 40 minutes.
Hopefully.
Good luck at Fukuoka if we don't hear from you before.
Yeah, thank you.
You got
Hopefully.
4 weeks this weekend? 5? 4?
It's 4. So I wasn't counting when I was injured, and now I'm counting. So things are going well. So it's 4 weeks this weekend. So it's crazy. It's not that long, but it's actually ages. So it's
in the meat of it here though.
It is. I'm pretty keen just to get to Falls and kind of head down, bum up kind of stuff. But it's been a good chat. So
really nose that a peck because that's the same weekend. Have you been tracking the Road to Paris World Athletics website? You can see like where you're ranked so far.
I haven't. Is that up?
It's up. It's just been up the last couple of days.
Okay, so I used to check a little bit just the rankings. So it's not actually the dates were slightly off, and I was like, I'm going to stop doing this. Because it's like, I can't control that, do you know what I mean? And I don't want to put that pressure on me to perform and to say no that I have to run a certain time at Fukuoka. I feel like that my marathons have been really, I feel like I've ran them well because I've ran them in the moment rather than gone out and said I'm going to run this pace. So I haven't checked.
So you don't want to know? You want me to tell you? I looked it up today. I've got it open in front of me now.
All right, tell us. Go.
Well, I just got to load. Just give me a couple of seconds.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
But I think you were fourth after. So Brett, obviously, top-ranked Australian. Liam with his 2:08 and 2:11. And then it was Ed Goddard with his time from Gold Coast, which was the Oceania Champs, and his time from, I'm going to say, the International Californian Marathon. Even though it was pretty slower compared to what we're talking about with you. And but yours was only, the points you had for yours was, I'm just still loading here, I'm doing well to pad. Yours was the half marathon. You only had one time there.
And
so you've got half marathon and Hamburg.
And my half marathon's really slow, really slow, because that's probably Launceston, which would have been
Sunshine Coast.
Oh yeah.
So Liam's in the quota, so he's 56th as the second Australian, keeping in mind that they're taking 80.
Yes.
So he's kind of safe at the moment, you'd say. 56.
No, that's the thing. He's been safe for a while. Like running 20, what was it, 207, 208, 208.
Yep, 208.
At Gold Coast.
Yep.
Like that's crazy points. Like crazy points. So he's safe. Like I'm not sure why he thinks he isn't safe and why he's trying to run super fast because his spot's safe.
Yeah, he got 12:53 and then 11:31 points for Berlin for his 2:11.
Yeah.
So he's working on 11:92 points as his average. So then Ed is in 72nd place, so he's qualified at the moment with 1,130 point average, which is his Gold Coast 2:12 and his Californian Marathon 2:13. So if he goes again, and then you are just below him, he's in 72nd place. I don't think we'll be getting to this in this conversation, mate.
No, I didn't, but it's good. You got me on the edge of my seat.
You are, You are drawn with a shitload of other people on 81st position with 1,011 points. So you're only one spot outside, but you're a third-ranked Australian. Fourth, sorry, yes. You're one position out in the rankings and one spot out with the country.
Yeah, nah, that's why, like, I've put all my eggs into the Fukuoka basket to try to run, uh, hopefully a 209 something, and that will hopefully bump me up the rankings a fair bit.
Yeah, Ed's got 19 points on you.
Yeah, not many.
That'd be good. Right, mate, I'm going to start recording now.
Perfect. Thanks, mate.
Go put that as your background on your phone.
Yeah.
Ranking Point website.